The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Nigerian Economy, Wale Edun, has said that the country cannot rely on borrowing to fund the 2024 national budget. He said the nation must make necessary sacrifices to generate adequate revenues to reduce its current high deficit budget financing. The minister stated this when he appeared before the Joint Senate Committee scrutinizing the 2024-2026 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper led by Senator Sani Musa. And the minister went on to maintain that the best way Nigeria could fund its annual budgets was to spend more money on infrastructure that could generate revenues. Now, where would the money to even spend on infrastructure also come from? Joining me from London, UK to talk about this is Gospel Obele, Chief Economist, Streetnomics. It's nice to have you, Gospel, talk to us at this time.
Thank you very much for having me, Kyle.
Now, Gospel, we all know that the country cannot, of course, we all know that the country cannot rely on borrowing. With a debt portfolio of over 87 trillion naira, a repayment that is unsustainable, and the issue around investors not willing to put their money into the Nigerian economy, inflation rate is high. What then can Nigeria rely on when it comes to funding the 2024 budget?
Well, to be quite honest, what can we really rely on? We can on one end seek to go very self-reliant. I think we've got all that it takes to pull this off. When the crisis hits the most externally, you will now need to draw back in and look at what you have and make the most out of it. And there's a lot of things we haven't made the most out of. In the first place, the whole tax reform pack needs to be properly executed and executed really fast. And the catch should be inspiring more people into the tax block. I start with taxes because outside borrowing, your next wave will be taxes. How do you rake in more tax revenue? And how do you do that consistently across subnationals? Because outside Lagos, Rivers, and Ogun, those three states virtually contribute about 80 to 90% of the current tax revenue block, which is the primary revenue of the budget to a large extent. So you want to think of how you can inspire, encourage, more Nigerians, more local businesses to comply in the tax block, not trying to force them into it. And that's number one. Then number two, you also need to begin to think of how we can relax most of the heavyweight pressure or issues or challenges we have that are threatening investors' confidence. Take, for instance, inflation, insecurity, power, and all of those things. What reform steps are we taking to fixing those problems? All right, so those problems are there, no doubt. But then again, you want to communicate what we are doing about fixing those problems and reassure investors of their investments and all of that into the Nigerian economy. And it's said to do that because there is literally no nation where there are no insecurity challenges in quotes. There is no nation where you don't have some form of risk exposure to investment. It's just about communicating what you're doing and actually doing them, all right, to a very large extent. So once we begin to fix lots of these little things and the quick wins we have around the services sector, which is likely not organized right now, and using that as a strategy to rake in more foreign investments or even foreign exchange receipts, will go a long way. Another angle will be reworking the diaspora remittance market to move from a welfareist, consumption-based model to a very production and sort of paying forward-based model. Many people across outside the country are currently setting up charities to give back locally, all right, which is very good. And it shows us that lots of Nigerians actually want to invest back home, all right. So how do you organize all of that effort from the diaspora market and ensure that they are piped correctly into the core productive end of the Nigerian economy, all right? So once we begin to look inwards and begin to look at the options we already have available, literally ready for us to take, then we can begin to make a significant project progress forward. One of the major reasons why we've not been able to progress on this particular issue is that I don't think we've been honest enough with ourselves, and we've also not been honest with the actions and the execution process, sustained over time to really get this, conversation done with.
Yes, I'm particular about the issue of action and processes when it comes to implementation, because you have mentioned, just as the Minister of Finance has also mentioned, that there's the need for us to look inwards. Now, Wale Edun even said that the best way for Nigeria to fund its annual budget was also to spend more money on infrastructure. You've talked about the need to invest in the power sector, and you've also talked about other areas that are of concern to you. Now, most especially tax. Now, two things for tax. There have been talks about the need to increase the tax rates, aside having to expand the net to accommodate as many people as to pay tax. Would you also advocate for the tax rates to be increased so as to generate more revenue? And when it comes to power, how or where do you think the Nigerian government would source funds from an economy that is already choked to finance this particular sector? Of course, we know it's a very, very critical sector when it comes to production, of course, cost of production when it comes to goods and services. But then where would the money come from when we look at the domestic side of it that is already choked, that is battling with inflation, battling with forex needs and all that? How do you think the Nigerian government will be able to go over and above these issues?
I mean, the first question you alluded to, fixing the revenue crisis, right? Are we supposed to grow tax net or the tax base? I mean, to be very honest with you, one of the good things about taxes in Nigeria is that it's a law of large numbers. And we've not been able to properly tap into that, block of possibility or its potential. I would always, resort to expanding the tax base, not necessarily the tax net, getting more people into the core to sort of pay taxes. And if you look at the data, I mean, we did a study recently on entrepreneurship and realized that over close to 80 to 90% of young businesses or small businesses in Nigeria are genuinely seeking to pay taxes. All right, but because of the administrative blocks, the accountability issues, the transparency issues, they can't seem to find a reason why. All right, so the truth is, even the state government that is complaining hasn't really done enough to become trustworthy in the eyes of its economic agents. All right, so and those who you can actually capture within the current tax space, you're seeking to increase the tax rates for them. So I think we should grow the tax net. All right, once you can inspire and encourage compliance, how? By fixing your accountability issues, by ensuring that your budgetary spendings are prioritized on infrastructure projects, on capital expenditure. Gone are the days of that 70-30 share of expenditure and all of that. You need to, at least to a very fair extent, move to 55-45. Let's say you reduce with 5% to run recurrent and 45% to run capital. If really devotes to capital expenditure more and more, you see that the Nigerian economy will significantly transform. The conversation has been, fixing and rehabilitating turbulent region and all the likes. I know you were signed recently, but you can see how slow paced we are in terms of onboarding new infrastructure investments and all of that. So there is a need to shift the goalposts. There's a need to cut down significantly on recurrence, and there are many items on the recurring blocks that are wasteful items. All right. So the truth is, most of our problems can be solved internally. So when you begin to look at that shift, that's a very good way in the right direction. Number one. Number two will be the fact that once you begin to lead on those accountability dynamics, you get to encourage more Nigerians to, pay this tax, commit. They're going to give the system a chance. And once they give the system a chance, the encouragement as well will be that government should take that chance and actually do what it's required to do as priority for businesses and local individuals in the country. With that cycle of improved accountability over time, I think that most of these issues will be dealt with. Anything short of that will be coming back to the conversation again.
Let's quickly take a look at the issue of inflation. We cannot but just talk about it. Now it's about 27.33%. Would you at this point encourage the increase of interest rates as it's being done in the advanced countries, so at least in a way bring down inflation in the country? Maybe in a way also help in stabilizing the economy as the minister speculated. We know that the NPC was meant to have held a meeting today, but it was postponed. And in our previous conversation, Arget said that there's a possibility that the interest rates might just be increased. So do you think that the NPC should be looking in that direction?
I mean, there are many reasons why they want to increase interest rates. Global interest rates are going up, although some countries are seeking to hold them flat just to watch how activities evolve. But then again, we are in this cycle, all right? The reasons why people like governments, like central banks are increasing interest rates because they believe that the core of the inflationary dynamics you deal with today is monetary supply. So when you increase interest rates, you discourage people from borrowing and all of that, and then you sort of take back money out of the system. Now, but the money supply dynamics we have right now has been as a result of the growing cost of living. So people are spending more monies, not necessarily because they just want to push out money there, but because the cost of living, the cost of transactions, the cost of facilitating exchange, in exchanging value and all that has increased. So you have more denominations of naira, more money in the system. But however, I've always believed that interest rates are not enough. You may be part of the pack, but they're not enough solution to deal with the current inflation. There are many other structural, strongly interwoven geopolitical dynamics that are eating deep on the inflation conversation than money supply only. So trying to use a monetary instrument to solve an inflation pack that is not 100% monetary is a misalignment. So what you're going to find is that interest rate hike will lead to higher inflation. Higher inflation because you're increasing the cost of borrowing. Higher inflation because all of that cost of borrowing and increased cost of food and all of that will permeate back into the basic necessities that the average Nigerian needs to thrive. And then again, you're back against the cycle of higher money supply because people spend more money to buy a bit of eggs. So I don't think this is the most sustainable way forward. It may be part of the path, but there has to be a stronger and a more futuristic or innovative tool mix to deal with inflation we're faced with.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to consistently.
Okay. Okay, let's quickly look at this alternative then. The Nigerian government said it is thinking about reducing the quantum of borrowing or intercepting deficit financing in the budget, actually pointing to Nigeria's decision to raise the statutory reserve ratio from 11.5% to 14.5%. So the finance minister is saying by reducing the amount of money that commercial banks have available for lending and spending, the CBN is hoping to now reduce the demand for dollars and ease pressure on the exchange rate. So would this, stabilize the economy and probably reduce inflation too as an alternative?
Yeah, I think that's a very intelligent way forward because this is one of the most recent innovative ideas we've had on this whole inflationary dynamics because we've seen it. We've been interested for almost 2 years now, and it has gotten worse. It's just simple mathematics, simple economics, very visual. So I think that going in this direction will sort of help to curtail the impact a bit, but it's also very careful. We need to be further careful here. Because do not forget that almost 60% of the demand for FX does not come through the conventional or formal institutions, all right? In as much as so much demand comes from there, you have so much more in the parallel market, right? So if parallel market economics are overweighing on conventional markets because you sort of regulated that to a point, because when the situation gets to the point where people can no longer access the normal volume and all of that in the conventional market, it sort of goes back to pressure heavily on the parallel market, and that may affect the interest rate. So, the exchange, which again impacts on inflation. So, I would think of the need to do what we have in mind to do right now. It's a very innovative idea. However, introduce controls, risk measures, and mitigating risk strategies sort of manage the impact on the parallel market. Otherwise, that can further spiral and make this current idea very much counterproductive in a sense. All right. So it's a very complex moving part because Nigeria is a very complex economy. And the structural failure we have has made lots of our economics really complex to fix at one policy goal. So in the bid to sort of introducing your increasing reserves and all of that, statutory reserves and all that, you also need to introduce exemption, in strategic markets where you can also be able to downsize the trickle down impact of that one stance policy. So it has to be a lot of moving parts of policies that are very linked to the same goal, not one policy focusing on one edge of the market. So, and that's the world we're living in right now. Everything has become very interdependent. Just the way in 2007, an inflationary or economic variable would have led to recession. All right, in 2019, a global health variable led to recession. That's to tell you how very interconnected the world is today. Not to talk about nations that are very volatile and very dynamic like Nigeria.
Well, I tell you, it's a lot more that the Nigerian government would have to do if it is hoping to fund its budget. Looking at it from the technical angle, from the monetary angle, from the fiscal angle, and there have also been talks about leakages in the ministries, departments, and agencies that need to be looked into, and they need to also cut down on expenditure, as you have also mentioned. Gospel Obele, Chief Economist, Streetnomics, it was nice having this session with you.
Thank you very much for having me. Do have a wonderful day, Lekan.
And you too.